Welcome. Welcome to the Grants and Funding Funding. Can we start over? The Metro Arts Grants and Funding Committee meeting. It's Thursday, April 24th, 2025. I want to start by reading this, and I'm going to need the pronunciation chime in. Thank you. Pursuant to the provisions of 2.68030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that the decisions of the Arts Commission may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the Commission. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. So thank you for that. And now I'd like to call the meeting formally to order. Vivian, could we do a roll call just to do that?
We sure can.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lefkowitz,
Here.
Commissioner Jester,
Here.
Commissioner Knight,
Here.
Commissioner Wade,
Here.
Commissioner Khalil, Interim Executive Director Batchelder,
Here.
Sydney Davis,
Here.
and myself, Vivian Fox, are here.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Public comment. Vivian, do we have any public comment today?
No, we do not have any public comment in person, and we have not had anything submitted. If anything is submitted later on, I will send that out to the committee.
Thank you. Just a reminder to the community that we welcome public comment, and there is an online public comment form on the Commission's website, and we get all of those as well as your emails too. I want to go on and move to agenda item C, which is the approval of minutes. We have two meeting minutes to approve, February 28th and March 27th. I'll just take those one by one. So in looking at February 28th, I would take any thoughts on those or a motion to approve.
I read through them last night, and as far as I can tell, they look good. They're pretty long and involved, so, but I'll make a motion to approve the February 28 minutes.
I second that motion.
Thank you. So that's Commissioner Jester and Commissioner Knight second. All in favor of approving minutes for February 28th?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. So the minutes of February 28th are approved. Now you have before you the minutes for March 27th. Have a chance to take a look at those, and if you have any thoughts, or I would take a motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Jester. Commissioner Wade made the motion. All in favor of approving the minutes for March 27th?
Aye.
Yeah,
Aye.
yes,
Aye.
yes. Opposed? Abstaining? None. So it carries. So thank you. So then both set of minutes are approved. We're going to move right to the heart of everything, which is the discussion items. So we have two sets of discussion items today, continuing to close out FY25. So we have updates on that, and then 26 is well underway. So Ashley, would you want to start with thinking about the FY25 updates, giving us any details on activities and contracts and payment status?
Yes, thank you, and good to to see all of you today. Thank you for being here. And so what we've prepared for FY25 updates is that I will give a report on the status of where things are, and then Sydney will give a report on the denial summaries that we have analyzed for the FY25 cycle. And so if we go to the next slide, this is on the screen, the same thing that you have in front of you. And so, as I say at each meeting, this is the same format that we've used before. The red font are the updates. So we are making really great progress on contracting and invoicing and getting payments out. So again, I'm gonna just kind of talk about what the process is so that everybody knows what the process is. So for contracting, I think the last time we reported on this, we reported that organizations had completed their acceptance form and submitted additional information that we need to generate the contracts with all the appropriate exhibits and such. So once that was all collected, we moved on to generating the 164 contracts. And so that was led by Metro Legal. You know, we know that we have capacity limits with our small team, and so we got support from a paralegal at Metro Legal that works with our legal support team that we have here, and she project managed the whole process of creating contracts, disseminating contracts, providing almost daily reports on the status of contracts, how many have been signed, where have the holdups been, what contracts were getting denied for various reasons. And so really just want to say that was a huge way that we added capacity to our team to get this done, and very grateful that we had that extra resource. And so where we are right now, the status of today is that we have 165 grantees. And so 160 contracts are fully signed and executed. So contracts have to receive 7 signatures. There's 2 signatures from the grantees. It requires a signature from the board chair, as well as a director or sort of the highest leadership position in organizations. And then I sign it, and then the finance director signs it, the insurance person signs it, Tessa signs it, the clerk signs it, and so the routing process goes sequential through all of those people. And so 160 contracts are fully signed and executed and completed. We have 2 contracts that we are still waiting for the grantee to sign, and we have 2 contracts that are waiting on final signatures from Metro. Those are ones that we just recently got in recent days. And then we have 1 contract that is not being processed right now due to an outstanding appeal. So that gets us to our 165 grantees, and we are almost done with the contracting process. So what happens after we receive a fully signed contract is we, download it, file it, and create a corresponding invoice for it. And we have requested and are processing expedited payments for all of these invoices. And so we are moving them as quickly through the process as possible. And so the status as of today is that 146 payments are approved. And so I have heard from some grantees that the money is in their bank. I have heard from others who are still waiting on it, but we know that those are processing. And so we have 19 outstanding grantees that payments are not approved, and so that number 19 is those that we're still waiting on that contract, that are still in that processing, or they might have a vendor issue. And so, again, just to really narrate what goes into a approval process is that we send our invoice to our finance coordinator here at Metro Arts. She sends it to the centralized Metro financing system. That takes a couple days to process it. They send it back to us. We, as an internal check, require, or an internal control, require 2 approvers within Metro Arts. So those are staff members who are not Sydney nor myself, who who verify that the numbers, the invoices match the contract and everything is as it should. They both sequentially have to approve it. It sends back to the Metro centralized system, might take another day or so to process there, and then it gets paid. And then, of course, that varies by bank of that ACH transfer. So this expedited process takes maybe a week and a half or so to move through, and if it were not expedited, it would be much slower. And so that is where we are. And so I know for folks who are waiting for those payments, every day is one day longer that folks are waiting for. But for Metro, I believe that we're moving them as fast as we can through this system. So, any questions on any of that? That is that. If we go to the next slide, I think I'm going to turn it over to Sydney. Yep, I'm going to turn it over to Sydney.
Hi, everyone. So in front of you, you will have a document that just is a quick denial overview. In total, we had 176 applications that were denied, and that's between Thrive and operating. Where we'll start is I'm actually going to ask you to flip over to the back page first where the operating, there were 28 operating denials. I'm sorry, I'm going to start with operating first. Can you skip through? So it's a little bit of a smaller number and a touch easier to jump through. And so these reasons for denials are up on the screen. They're also on your sheet here. And there were three main reasons where we kind of went through, analyzed, went through the notes from the tech reviews, this is from every level, from tech reviews to overall reviews from panelists. And essentially it came down to these three, which was application was either not completed, it was a duplicate application, or it was an eligibility of funds. Now, the first two, application not completed, duplicate application, they seemingly on the surface level make a little bit of sense, but in the category description, it's important to understand that duplicate applications are considered organizations that submitted more than one application across either Thrive and operating programs. And then we also wanted to reiterate that only one active award was permitted per grant cycle, but we do want to note that if they were denied in operating and they happen to also apply in Thrive, there's a very good chance that they were awarded a Thrive Award. And so it's a denial in the sense that their operating was denied, but not necessarily that, that they were just denied an award across the board, right? And then eligibility of funds, we'll get back to that when we talk through the Thrive because it's a little bit more specific there. And then the application not completed, it just means that they didn't submit all of the required materials. You know, they didn't meet deadlines, they failed to complete key sections, and this includes anything from contact information, application narrative questions, and then again, just if it was just a blank application. And then we'll go back to Thrive. So Thrive, this is where the bulk of our denials came from. And so as you'll see on the left, some of those different categories where the application, again, was not completed, lack of fiscal sponsor documentation, the project was not in the timeline, they also might have withdrew their own application, and then also an application was submitted after January 2024, and then again, the eligibility of funds category that you saw in operating. So for those, again, application not completed, that's pretty self-explanatory. There just was some level of incompleteness about this application, and there was most likely missing, if not all, the documentation for this application to be considered. Now, where we get down to the bottom, or to the next one where it's lack of fiscal sponsor documentation, this application could have had almost a full application documentation for maybe their contact information, their plan for their project, narrative questions, but they did not, either they did not find or they did not, you know, put any supporting documentation for fiscal sponsor. Then next one, project not in timeline. There, with the changes and the pausing, there were just some projects that just did not fit within the timeline, and that was and it wasn't updated within their application, and so they were denied in that regard. And then also they just withdrew their own application. Again, some of these also fall into the category that they only wanted to be considered for. Maybe they were written into another grant application with someone else, or maybe they chose to be a fiscal sponsor and didn't want an application. There's a bunch of different reasons why people withdrew, but we did, in this case, have about 17 people who withdrew their own application. Also, applications submitted after January 2024. Now, in this case, when we reopen submittable for people to make edits and changes, there's no way to kind of like segue it and like keep other outside people who hadn't already applied from applying. So what we saw is just people who assumed that this was a new grant cycle applying, and then obviously we had to deny for the sake of it didn't fit within the requirement of what was agreed upon from the commission. And then eligibility of funds. And so these applications, for example, proposed activities or costs that did not meet the allowable use of requirements. So we had construction, we had retroactive expenses. Some were not located in Nashville, Davidson County, and just generally they did not meet the general requirements of eligibility for Thrive. So are there any questions there? Yes, ma'am.
The folks who, all those other than the ones who withdrew their own application, are they receiving or did they receive feedback as to what the issue was?
So they can request it and we can give them a full review packet that gives the details, but any individual that has reached out to me and has asked why, we've given them the information about why they were denied. And they also would have received communication shortly after the decision was made too. So it's been a few weeks since that communication has gone out.
I just asked because having written many grants, we get the generic, there were so many wonderful applications, blah, blah, blah. And some folks give us an opportunity to ask for information, and I was just wondering.
Absolutely, and if there's anybody that is listening and would like to have more information about why they were possibly denied, you're more than welcome to email arts.grants and we can give you a full review packet. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you, Sydney. We are going to move now. If it's all right, if there are no more questions about 25, we're okay with moving to 26. So fiscal year 26 updates. We've had some community engagement happening the last several weeks, and my thanks to the staff for arranging that and being present. And I wonder, Ashley, could you give some updates on the community engagement for 26?
Yes, so what we've prepared for this section is what Heather just referenced, so updates on those events. I am going to do a quick run through with you all with the slide deck that we're using at those so that you can see that information, hear how we're framing it, and engage in some of that same discussion. I'm not going to, I've got one other slide I want to show before there. And then we'll talk about next steps for this committee and what to expect for our next meeting. So if you go to the next slide, this is just an image of what you have on the page in front of you. So we have sort of three formal methods right now that we are doing public engagements right now. So we have an online survey, and that short link, the bit.ly, is on the screen here where you can access that survey. And so it is, every question is optional, and there are a lot of questions, but we have a low number of responses, but the people who are responding are giving very substantive feedback. And so that is for folks who want to just go on and tell us one thing or want to tell us 20 things. So that's an online survey, and anybody can access it at that link there. We are doing 5 public engagement events that are shown here in the table and on the image on the screen. And so we have arranged a couple evening events, one morning event, one afternoon event at different locations, and a virtual event that we have this evening. And so our first event was on Thursday, April the 10th, and that was at Studio 615. And so that is sort of a maker's space. People can rent small studio spaces there, and it's very new. It's in the last couple of months. And so a lot of folks that came, they were like, wow, I had no idea that this place existed. And so, lots of good just sort of networking connections being made through this process as well. We had 13 people come to that. This was that day that like really weird storm like rolled right through, and like the trash can was like blowing through the parking lot and like hit someone's car, and thank you to the 13 people who made it out. And I've indicated here on the sign-in, we asked people to indicate if they are a current or past grantee or if they're not. And so you see that at every session, people who are not grantees are coming because they have an interest in learning what opportunities there are, as well as folks who are current or past grantees. And so that was our first session. Our second session was at Trinity Community Commons, which is a community space off Trinity and Dickerson, and they have a community meal that we participated in, and then we had a Thrive-focused session. And so we had 9 attendees at that event, and you see the breakdown there again. And so, a lot of good connections, in addition to people, interested in specific questions for Metro Arts. Our next session was a Wednesday morning that was operating focused, and that was held at Centennial Arts Center. We had 15 people sign the sign-in, although I really think that there were more than 15 people in the room. That was our most attended one. And the majority of those were operating grantees, had really great discussion about the funding models there. And then this week on Monday afternoon, we had an event at 100 Taylor Events, and we had 15 people come to that. Again, a mix of grantees and not grantees. And so I'm gonna go through those slides, like I said, and we've got the last session tonight. It's virtual. If you all or anybody watching or listening is interested in the link for that, you can email us at artsrsvp@nashville.gov, and you'll get the link to log on to that. It's at 5 p.m., and that will cover both operating and Thrive and discussion with whoever is in the space and how we want to use that space. So what you can expect from us early next week is a report in your email about sort of takeaways and notes from those. I've got the draft notes here, but we're gonna polish them up a little bit to send to you early next week after we've had the final event.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
For the survey, given what you just said, I know that there's not an end date for that survey, but like, I guess maybe a suggested quote unquote deadline, soft deadline for completion in order for the feedback to be included in what you might send us might be within the next day or so. I don't know how to, I just would, encouraging people to complete the survey sooner rather than later, I guess.
So we can send an email out to our email list after the event this evening, just thinking, whoever on the email list that might have come to an event, and giving them the survey, and I can put, a deadline on that of maybe Tuesday of next week. And of course, we talk to people every day, even if there's not an open survey. And so that's a good suggestion, and I'll do that. The other thing on the back of your sheet, I have been holding weekly sort of drop-in sessions at different locations, 2-hour blocks, just to have, again, another way of being accessible. And I think that we as Metro Arts have lots of different stakeholders and lots of partners. And so the folks who, these are smaller numbers of folks who are coming to these. I've had 2 people come to the ones I've done, each one that I've done so far, including council members who have wanted to just come and hear updates about Metro Arts. And so I think the benefit of doing them in different areas is that I've been letting council members know so that they can send them to their constituents if they've had constituents asking them about what's going on with Metro Arts. And so I've had council members come talk, drop into these. I had 2 grantees come to the one yesterday. And so these are just sort of more casual where I don't have an agenda and I just talk with whoever shows up about whatever they want to talk to. And so I'll continue doing those weekly drop-ins through the end of May. So what's our next slide here? Okay, so the next slide, I am going to give y'all a little presentation. And so this meeting is scheduled for 2 hours, right? Yeah, okay. And so if you pull up the other slides, this is cue the other slides. And so I just want, I know many of you have probably looked at these slides already. These are on our website, and I want us to kind of have the same sort of container to have a conversation that we've been having with folks who've come to these. And so I'm not going to spend time on slides that I've talked at length in these meetings about. So we can go to the next slide here, go to the next slide here. And so, you know, we are telling folks what we've talked about here is that my goal, and I think our whole team's goal, is to get the grant cycle sort of back on schedule. And so in order to do that, we don't have time to make a lot of like huge changes. So these meetings are opportunities to talk about like little tweaks that we can make to improve our process, to make sure that there's clear information, and to make smaller adjustments. And we want to hear everybody's ideas, suggestions, experiences, but some of those bigger things will have to be for the next cycle. And so we're really using this cycle as a starting point for the next cycle. And so if you go to the next slide, this just tells people to please sign in. And then if you go to the next slide, these are the things that we're going to talk about. So go to the next slide. I start by talking about our operating grants, and we have 90 grantees this year in FY25. You can go to the next slide. And you all are well aware of this chart before, and so you can go to the next slide. A lot of people have this chart memorized, right? They don't need me to tell them the percentages. I've gone through this with you all, but it's been important for people to understand how their award was calculated and the formula that led to their dollar amount that they're receiving. So I explained that. I've done this here, so you can go to the next slide. And then this is, I think, a new image that we've not had here in committee, but this shows what the actual percentage is instead of what the formula. So we say all day long that the formula is to have small organizations be funded at 50% of their budget, right? But when we apply that scale, it's actually 16.5% of their budget. So having this show the actual versus the formula is a better way to understand what those actual numbers are, and it's more reflective. It's easier to talk about instead of saying 75%, but scale to the budget, so it's going to be some other number, right? So that just helps people understand in more actual terms. So you can go to the next slide. And so we've got a lot of questions that say, could I have increased my award amount if my score was higher? And the answer to that is on the next slide. The answer is no, because under this model, applications that score between 70 and 100% are awarded based on the formula, right? And this is a change in the last 2 cycles. And so this often creates a lot of conversation because this is really about access over competition, right? And so this has generated a lot of good conversation in those groups. But it's important to clarify that the scores are really a pass-fail method. So we can go to the next slide. And so this is an image that has 90 dots on the screen for the 90 grantees that we have. And this shows our micro, small, medium, mid-size, and large organizations. And you can see the distribution by award size. So our micro awards, the smallest one is about, I think it's $998, so about $1,000 to a little over $5,000. You see our small awards range from about $3,700 to about $15,000. You see our medium awards have the broadest range, which go from a little under $10,000 to a little over $40,000. When we get up to our mid-size, that's around $23,000, and then you see a line of several concentrated awards that are about $39,000. And so when you see that sort of concentrated line there, it means that there's a funding cap at that budget tier level. And so the model is really only sensitive if it doesn't reach that cap, right? So it's only sort of sensitive to the dots that have space between them, right? Once you hit that cap, it doesn't matter what your budget is beyond that. And when you get to the large, you see that as well, where we've got our lowest large organization at $18,000. That is a bit of an anomaly data point that shows one of the flaws in the model. And then you go and you see 6 organizations at the $66,000. And so again, those have hit the maximum, the cap, so that at that level, it doesn't matter if your budget is, 100 million or 200 million, right? None of them are that large. But when they hit the cap, the model is no longer sensitive to that. So that's the distribution of the 90 grantees that we have this year. And so you can go to the next slide. And then for Thrive, I run through the same thing. So the next slide shows the funding model. You all know this, the applications were scored and ranked. So this is a different scoring and method than operating. Highest scoring application to lowest scoring application. $20,000 maximum request ask. All the awards were scaled to 75%. And then if there was a remainder or surplus, it was redistributed. So the next slide shows what that distribution is. So we have 2 different colored dots on the screen here. These are 75 dots for 75 grantees. The blue data points that are smaller, those are funded at the full percent that they requested. So you see the $4,000 one, that's because they requested $4,000 in their application. The ones that are the pink, those are ones that were funded at a lower level than they requested, but they were still all funded at a level of 93% or more of their request. So the concentrated line here is that the majority of Thrive Awards were $18,784. And so those were the ones that requested the maximum ask of $20,000 and just how the funding model worked out. You can go to the next slide. And so this is similar to the information that we brought you last month at the meeting, but we had 75 Thrive projects and 59 of them had a fiscal sponsor. And of those 59 fiscally sponsored projects, there were 33 unique fiscal sponsors. And so this tells us what we know is that some organizations sponsored multiple projects, and it was permissible to charge an administrative fee up to 10%. And so the image on the right shows what those number of sponsored projects and the fees from 22 projects having a 0% fee, and then you can read around the image to see up to the 18 projects having a 10% fee. You can go to the next slide. So that was our outcomes from operating, our outcomes from Thrive. And so if we put it all together, I've got just a couple slides here. You can go to the next one. And so this is a very similar image again that shows the distribution, the same distribution of micro through large organizations, but I add Thrive in there. And when you see the kind of gray bulge areas, that shows the concentration of multiple data points at that level. So what this shows here is that the Thrive Awards all exceeded in size micro operating awards. A majority of them exceeded in size all the small operating awards and were parallel in size to medium operating awards. And then again, you can see where our mid-size and our large awards fall here. And so Sydney mentioned in her report around duplicate applications. We know that a lot or a fair number of applicants really understood the funding formulas, right? And we're kind of trying to make decisions around our small organizations. Should I apply for Thrive? Should I apply for operating? Because they see this and they understand this, right? And so that sort of decision-making process, and, we certainly got questions of, we know that if we do a small operating award, it's going to be smaller, but we really need operating costs. But that might, that makes it harder to like seed projects with project funding as well. So this was just a conversation that we certainly have had a lot, and I think that there's a lot that we could talk about when we look at this image as well. And like keeping in mind our policy goals of wanting to support a diversity of types of work, of people who are receiving funding, organizations that are receiving funding, and so this generates a lot of conversation as well. So you can go to the next slide. This is just a different way of showing the same information. And so our budget this year of $3.2 million, our 40% allocation to Thrive, and then you can see micro through large organizations, the different distributions percentage-wise. You can go to the next slide. And so this brings us to what to expect. This is something that a lot of people want to know. You can click the next slide. This is when people take out their phones and take pictures of this timeline. And so these are very general timelines, right? We don't want to raise expectations that certain things are going to happen on certain dates, but people want to know what to expect for what's coming, right? So May is the month that we are looking at guideline approvals. That's from you all, and then taking that to Metro Council. If that all goes well, in June, we're looking at applications. In July, we're looking at scoring. That's our tech review plus our community panel review. Coming back to commission for approvals in August. September is that award acceptance and contracting, and then that puts money out the door by the end of the year. And so sort of the way that I have been describing the tentative timeline is that, I shouldn't call them opportunities, but potential delays would happen if we miss these meetings that only happen once a month or twice a month, right? The commission only meets once a month. The Metro Council only meets twice a month. So some of these deadlines, if we miss them, it means that things get pushed back 2 to 3 weeks. So those are kind of the ways that we're talking about expectations timeline-wise. And I will say, when people see this, they are very much in agreement of money by the end of the year is good. Don't do large-scale changes that can't be done right now because we want money out the door by the end of the year. And so being able to talk about sort of all of that helps people understand the process that we go through. You can go to the next slide. And so at this point in the sessions, we've kind of been playing it by ear. We do group discussions. At times we broke out between operating and Thrive. I think the remainder of the slides are just, we have discussions based on what people want to talk about for operating, and then the next one is what people want to talk about for Thrive. And then I think the last slide is, I think this is all of the slides. The last one, I think, is just the remaining of the dates, yeah. So that is how the meetings are going, sort of flow-wise, and like I said, we'll have a report to you by early next week, just summaries of the feedback that we get and kind of what it is, the questions that it is bringing up, what is feasible to like think and talk and do about this year, what is a longer conversation. But I kind of want to just give the floor to you all if you want to go back to any slide and talk about it or ask questions, and just do that. I'm not trying to have like a mock meeting or anything, right? But I wanted to just make sure that we have the same conversation that we're having in community with our different partners and folks, so.
I am curious what the circumstances were around the one large organization that had such a small grant amount. What you said it was an anomalous sort of event. What caused that?
Yeah, that was, if you go way back on the slide to the green table with the different budget amounts. Yeah, that one. Or go back 2 more slides. So that's a large organization that is like $3.1 million. And so when you apply that 1.8%, that's the result. And so some of our other large organizations that are much larger than 3 million, when you apply that 1.8, it's a much larger number. But you see, you know, had they been just sort of on the other side of the line, of the $3 million line, the outcome would have been very different because your multiplier is different. Yeah, from the one of the meetings we had, in the notes it says term of the day, suggestive cushion, and so that was around this point of transition for organizations that change levels that have sort of an effect like that, because
Yeah, if you have a $2.999 million budget, you end up with a much larger grant than if you have a $3 million budget. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and so, you know, I think that there's ways that we can address, and I think good policy like has to consider the whole system, right? So like what might be very dramatic, because the numbers are way bigger when we're talking about bigger numbers, like should be looked at every level as well. And so something similar could be, and I know it happens at least one other category as well. I think that there are ways to have a better measure, and so we know other agencies that use measures of revenue for something, whether it's for grants or for other purposes, use more than just 1 year, right? So it would be easy, we could easily use at least 2 years, because we know for returning grantees, we have this year plus the next year, and 3 years is another option that we know others do. And I will say our guidelines do only require you to be a nonprofit for 1 year, and so we would just, and that was a change in the last couple of years, right, about accessibility. And so we would just need to make sure that we have that accounted for as well, so that it doesn't inadvertently disqualify folks. So I think that we can improve the measure, the revenue measure, and then there are ways to kind of look at that transition. So we'll have some of those sort of options for you to consider next time.
I do think that just what you're doing, like, look, I mean, I'm a visual person, you know, I'll know this. It's so helpful to see those clusters, right? And then the outliers, and just look at the data that way to think about what is going on. And as we're thinking about, as Ashley said, maybe some smaller, like manageable policy interventions that we can do quickly to kind of try and stay on our timeline, but that maybe are suggested by the data and what we see. I think that's what we're going to try and bring to you next month, right? With the understanding that it's all going to happen quickly. So we're going to try to do that, be clear about those things, and yeah. Other questions people have about this?
Not necessarily a question, but a comment. I saw on the, I think Thrive, I don't know which one it was, but it talked about the underrepresented districts, and I'm interested to see the report next week and get what folks were saying about that, these 15 people that were at the events. I'm glad it was up there. And I am, again, going to ask the question I think that I asked it the last time, is even if we get money out the door in December, our intention is to keep pushing this process so that we are on an even earlier timeframe. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Totally agree with that. And that's maybe another incentive to your point about really trying to attend to this. We know there's lots of variables in terms of number of meetings and this and that, but that would enable us, if we can get the money out the door by the end of the year, to set us up for kind of a return to schedule, right? Which would be beautiful, I think, and really helpful for artists and for organizations. Other thoughts or questions about this? So the next steps would be, as I understand it, we'll get a report next week on the community engagement. We do want to encourage people to come tonight to the virtual session and also complete the survey. Information on those is also on our website. And I know I've seen it posted on social media as well. So and then we will get a report next week. We will look to have some recommendations about these tweaks that we could discuss and vote on at our next meeting in May, such that we could have these to the commission in the May meeting and then send to council. Is that right?
Yeah, and I'll say, I mean, I think one thing about not, what am I trying to say? By May 1st, we'll know at least what the mayor's budget is, so we'll also know what our, I'll use the word likely, it could change, but what our likely grant budget is. The mayor is required to submit his budget by May 1st, that is next Thursday. And the council, of course, can choose to add to it if they want to, but we'll at least know what our starting point is, and so that helps these conversations, right? I think if you go back to the other slide deck now, yeah, the last slide, yeah, go down to the, yeah. Yeah, this is kind of just what Commissioner Lefkowitz was referring to. This is where I said last month, right? Like, this is the pressure point where we take this, we think about our internal reviews, our legal reviews, and we'll do everything that we can to bring you a quality and ready product for our next meeting. We've got to talk with Tessa a little bit more to make sure that we are giving appropriate build-in time for all of the review processes that we have here, and to make sure that we understand all of the council processes as well. But I maybe we can talk about our next meeting date right now.
That's actually what I was wondering, if would that go under new business, Tessa? Okay. We could just move on then if we're okay. Is there any last thoughts or questions, commissioners? No. So we could move to new business, and as part of the new business, I think thinking about when we could meet again, because it's so easy to do that while we're here. I know we are missing one committee member, so we'll need to check in with her. But I think before the meeting, Ashley and I were talking about while not confirmed, the commission meeting is tentatively scheduled. Is that right?
Is May 22nd
Is it?
our likely May meeting? So I think you all know we're trying very hard to get on standing meetings because we know that is easier for you and
Yes.
us.
Yes, May 22nd. That would be the fourth Thursday of the month.
Yeah,
So that's where we're going to be for the May meeting.
yeah.
Okay.
So we were kind of thinking, that's Thursday, May 22nd, to give us enough time to really get something of value to you. We were curious about the 19th of May, which is a Monday, and that would give us time to prepare materials. It means we could get something to you on the 15th, by the 15th. So you would have 3+ days to review. So I was curious if we could discuss that. Commissioner Jester, it looks as if the 19th is,
19th is good for me. 22nd, like you mentioned before, is not, but the 19th is great.
I'm free all day the 19th.
I'm free after 12:30 on the 19th.
after 12:30. Can we note that? Perfect.
Is 1 o'clock? Is that like enough time for?
It wouldn't be
And
enough time
Tessa's
earlier.
very important in this polling as well.
Tessa, good.
Can I just go ahead and tentatively put it on my calendar? Is that fine?
Tentatively, yes, I would
Yeah.
say, but then we'll check with,
I'm going to check with
Jilla.
Commissioner
Khalil,
Khalil
okay.
in just a bit.
okay,
I
great.
know she had somewhere to be today, so I'll send her a message.
Perfect. So maybe tentatively, would 1 to 3 be okay? Okay.
Did we have a tentative time for the 22nd yet?
It would be for
Noon.
the 12 o'clock hour.
Noon to 2.
I just know that's going to be a weird one. I would probably have someone sitting in for me just because of Metro schools. That's the last day of school. And they get out at 11, if I'm not mistaken,
On that Thursday?
on that Thursday,
Yeah.
the 22nd. So,
My daughter graduates on the 17th. Let's have that on the record. No, I'm just kidding.
so I don't know how many. I know that there's a few parents on commission, so I'm not sure what their schedules would be if that interferes with them
Okay.
being able to come to the commission meeting.
Okay.
I think we expect to have a report on availability and proposed standing meeting dates for our commission meeting next week.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and put on your calendars 1 to 3 on the 19th. Hold that time and thank you for that. And we will absolutely be sure to get the materials to you by the 15th so that you'll have lots of time to look at it since there'll be a lot to talk about.
I know that I polled everyone for dates and availability, and I know that changes all the time. But I want to say it was the 2 days. It was going to be the third Monday or fourth Monday of the month, or the second Thursday of each month for grants committee as a whole. And I just wanted to see, while we're here, why I have you four here, what would your answer be? Or if you could look at a calendar, would that Monday work, or would that second Thursday work? Yes,
Just as a standing meeting,
as a standing meeting.
and
Because I would like for the standing meetings to start in July. Just give us enough time, because I know that things have been up in the air with May and June. And if we can make it June, then June would be great. But giving everyone enough time with their schedules. And I know we asked legal to be here, so also seeing her schedule and things that she possibly has. So just trying to find a standing time for the meetings.
Third Monday is good for me.
I can make those work in the afternoon, but not in the morning.
So afternoon, like
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock and after, okay.
That would be a preference for me too in the afternoon,
In
so.
the afternoon on Monday, okay. Commissioner Lefferts?
Second Thursday, you said?
Yes. Sorry, I know that was confusing.
I think I could do any of those options like at 1.
At 1, okay. So just a later meeting time.
Yeah.
I usually, when school starts again, I teach on Thursdays until, about 12:15. So a later start would work, and either Monday or Thursdays.
Monday or Thursday.
Mondays are wide open.
Okay. And Commissioner Jester, you said Monday was fine?
Was it third Monday afternoon is great, and second Thursdays also happen to be pretty good.
Okay. So right now I have leaning toward the Monday, that third
Yes.
Monday,
Yes.
as of right now. So I will, as soon as I get Commissioner Khalil's availability, then I will go from there with making it a confirmed date. And Tessa, does that work for you? Okay.
That's nice too, if we have commission meetings on Thursday, like to meet the same week. Oh, wait, never mind. Sorry, never mind.
Commissioner's 4th.
Never
Commission
mind.
is 4th, sorry. Yeah, Commission is 4th.
We're going to make a really beautiful, colorful calendar for you once
It's going
this
to be
gets
so
settled.
nice.
Yes.
Mhm. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Any more new business? I do know that Vivian let me know that we have guests who wanted to make a public comment. And I know the weather was bad, and that may have been a challenge. So, as I understand it, I'm able to recognize them. Is that right, Tessa?
Yeah, I think you've got the purview as the chair.
Okay.
I would suggest, even if you want to recognize them, you still adhere to the public comment rules that the commission has approved.
Yes. Yes, the public, I think I would like to recognize our guests to do public comment, Vivian, and then align with as Tessa suggested, the guidelines of a 2 minutes.
Mhm.
So, yes, I'm happy to.
All right, if you'd like to join us at the mic. And then if you stand right so the public can hear you as well. And then I will let you know when this clock starts, and then I'll let you also know when you're at your 1 minute mark.
And ma'am, please just remember that your public comments need to be germane to an item on the agenda.
Yes.
Thank you.
And your time starts now.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here for the first time. I am from a district, I'm not sure that we've gotten funding for any events, though I'm new here in the Tennessee state, and I am from Louisville, Kentucky, from the arts there. And I did a lot of projects that were city projects for the walking path in Louisville, Kentucky on the waterfront. Now I do just basically small things because I'm a senior now, and I am in the North Clarksville Pike apartment senior complex, which is newly developed. I've been doing from the convention center in Louisville, Kentucky, I've been doing event projects. So that's in my blood, and I've been doing it for 3 years there in the North
1 minute.
Clarksville community setting at the 2125 senior tenants building and the 2131 community building. These are events that I've just been doing. So I sent a lot of information to your staff, and some of my credentials showing that I do have credentials to do events and projects. I'm a little nervous, forgive me. But I see faces that I've seen before, but I'm interested in trying to get information on the grants because I'd like to not take money out of my pocket because I've been doing it for 3 years. The seniors love it, and they're excited that I'm here to represent them. So this is where I'm at, and I'm trying to get through the process of the application. I have been given back feedback, and I have one item that I need to get the EIN. I'm registered with the Tennessee Department for Business. I'm doing business as Black Diamond, and I do lots of projects. So the name extends to projects, and it's basically for the seniors there at the complex. Thank you so much.
What is your name, ma'am?
My name is Selena Marie Smith Wilson.
That's great.
Yes.
Ms. Smith-Wilson, thank you so much for coming. We love to hear about the things that you're working on in it. Yeah, that's our mission, right, is to serve and fund projects that benefit the community. So thank you so much for coming. And we will connect with you, right, to give you information on what some of your next steps could be.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any other new business or thoughts? I remain very grateful for the staff for all of their hard work in putting these community engagement sessions on and trying to bring our schedule together, and it's very gratifying. So we as a commission really thank you and see your work. Yes, did you have something else?
I'll just add as it's new business to be talked about at a future meeting, just flagging it so it doesn't get lost from Vivian's board packet that she'll send out. But next week we will hear the appeals that we have from this cycle, and we didn't bring that through grants just as a nature of process, but you have those in your email from me last night, and so those will be for discussion at the next commission meeting next week. So
Yeah, and per Ashley's point, just to clarify, make it clear, the appeals don't come through our committee first. They go directly to the commission per the bylaws. So if there's no more new business, I would take a motion to
I move we adjourn.
Commissioner Knight. Do I need a second? We can just call it. Thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate it. Wait, what? Sorry. Oh, sorry. Did I misspeak?
Appeals go directly to the commission per the guidelines and criteria. The bylaws are silent to this. This is a process that was just put into the guidelines and criteria.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. Guidelines, not bylaws. Okay, we can adjourn now. Let us go forth. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.